Hello, I'm Ian Skelly, and welcome to one of the new season's podcasts here at Wigmore Hall. In this case, we're looking forward to a very exciting residency by the composer and pianist Thomas Larcher, no stranger to Wigmore Hall, both as a performer and as a composer. And in this season, he's going to be appearing with us in both of those guises, playing the piano in a series of collaborations with various musicians, and also as our composer in residence. He was born in Innsbruck, in the wonderful setting of the Tyrol in the Austrian Alps, and when he's not composing or indeed performing, he's up in those mountains. And I think it's fair to say that over the years, those mountains have been a great source of inspiration. But he is inspired by a wide variety of different events and situations, everything from the refugee crisis in the Mediterranean to the day that he lost his favourite hat. I'm very pleased to say that before he takes up residence here at Wigmore Hall for the year, he's going to join us now for our podcast from his home in the Tyrol. Thomas, on a computer, hello and welcome.
Hello there.
Great to have you here on this podcast. You do go back a long way with Wigmore Hall, don't you? Can you remember the first time you ever performed here?
Well, first of all, it's very, very kind of you to have me here. And it, of course, awakens old memories from Wigmore Hall, from earlier times when I still used to play the piano a lot. So having said that, I really don't know when it was the first time that I played here. So at the first time, I think I played with an Austrian violinist, fine violinist Christian Altenburger here, but this was so long ago, and I know that there was a piece by me, and so, and I always also know from, I don't know, from my old Austrian perspective that Wigmore was something at that time very hard to get in. I mean, if you buy a ticket, then it's a bit easier, but if you want to play, it's almost it seemed to be like Carnegie Hall.
Well, I think it still is in many respects, but we do have a big history of you. I mean, I think we had a focus day of your music back in 2011 from my research. How much would you say your music has changed in that period between that first focus day and what we might hear coming up?
Well, indeed, there was this portrait already back then in 2011. And the blurring of things also has to do with the fact that our portrait of this season has been delayed through COVID. So everything was programmed, everything was set to go. But then this silly COVID came along, and we could do nothing. So here we are again. Well, how much have I changed as a composer? It's really hard to say. I have to admit, because in some ways I very much felt as like a beginner in 2011, which may sound very silly because I'm born in 63, so you shouldn't be a beginner in 2011. But my musical story is that I first became a concert pianist, and then I became a promoter and a teacher, professor in Basel, and only in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, I started to define myself as a composer, or I had this longing to really use the time which would be left for me to compose, because I had the feeling it's now or never.
So you've always wanted to be a composer, but the time just wasn't right.
I always was a composer, but I never spent the depth of getting into really big pieces or learning the craft really, really thoroughly through producing music, through listening to my own music, and then get the references or the echoes of that. So I felt that I should take it more seriously after I quit with my story of being a promoter.
And were there particular individuals who really encouraged you to
Yes, there
think like
were.
that?
Yeah, definitely there were. So it's particularly one conductor, astonishingly, but very typical of him that he really encouraged me. Then is Russell Davis.
Oh,
He's a very big-hearted man and one who really doesn't see himself in the center of his thinking. So he reaches out. And the other person I really owe a lot is Manfred Eicher from ECM Record. So I had done 2 CDs with him, one with Thomas Seetmeier and music by Heinz Holliger, and another one with me playing Schoenberg and Schubert. And he encouraged me to send him my own stuff, and we started out with this old CD now called Nouns, and it all was a matter of self-confidence, you know.
it,
And
it strikes it strikes me that you started with the piano and then you blossomed out from there. Is that a correct reading?
I hated the piano. I hated it for as a composer. Because I played so much new stuff. I played Neuwirth, I played Haas, I played Isabel Mundry, I played, I don't know, was Birdwhistle, I played, Mochizuki or Hosokawa. And every one of those knew what one can do with the piano, and I knew the whole, not the whole, but big parts of the repertoire and had played everything from Brahms concerti to Bach and all the thing and all the stuff. So what new things could you possibly find on such a worn out instrument? And so this was actually a hindrance for me to really get into it first, uh, because I thought, well, everything has been done, everything has been said. My life, you can tell the contents in three words or 3 sentences. So why is it me who should make others believe that the things those little black dots which I scribbled down should be worth playing? So only when I did this festival of new music, is called Klangspuren, and I founded it and also developed it into a big festival. Only when I found out that everyone is cooking with water in, well, clear alpine water in the best cases, dark, big city water in the worst cases. Only when I discovered that, um, I dared to somehow just do what I want to do without leaving all this, material discussions and things, things like that behind me, and simply write for me and my friends. And this also was very important because, for example, 2 people who are not amongst us anymore um, had a big influence. So that the first one was Heinrich Schiff, the cellist, who played a piece which was initiated actually by Till Fellner, who luckily is still going strong. And they played it, I think, even in Wigmore, and encouraged me very much. And I really tried to write a really good piece for them. And then the next person who called me out of nowhere on the phone was Lars Vogt.
Ah,
And he invited me to write, well, basically whatever I liked, but it ended up that I knew I was writing a piece for high soprano with Juliane Banse, fantastic German singer, and I would play together the piano in the piano trio part, and the violinist would be Christian Tetzlaff, for example. So I really know I would write for the very best people, and I experienced this festival in Heimbach then, which Lars famously did, and I felt for the first time really being embraced by a community of super nice people and a musical family holding together and being one band of brothers or something like that.
Mm.
That
And
that
and
I,
one of those early pieces is actually in one of the concerts that takes place on this Focus Day on the 1st
Hmm?
of November, which I think is called Kraken. Is that one of the pieces you're referring to at the moment?
No, Kraken is a very old piece,
Yes.
and it came into existence in a time, I think, from maybe 1999 to 2004. So, and it seemed to be quite a conglomerate of certain ideas and very widely stretched and not being planned as a whole piece. But now when I hear it with all the oddities it has regarding piano preparation and page turning and play techniques for the strings and all that, and I just heard it a while ago in Munich, and they played very well. And just thought, oh, I could never write such a piece again. There was
It's
this
very
urge.
virtuosic. It's very virtuosic.
Yeah, but there is this urge of needing to say something and really making a statement and really being uncompromised and really bold in a way,
Mm.
even.
Mm.
And that's what I like with this piece, and it works as a piece. In all its divergent
Yeah.
movements.
Well, that appears in the second of the three concerts on the first, because we've got this whole day focusing on your music. Can we just run through the day, because it does look very exciting? It starts at 11:30 in the morning with the Diotima Quartet, and they're giving the UK premiere of your fifth string quartet, which I'm very interested in. Out of the Bluest Blue. I mean, what blue are we talking about here? Is it the sky above the Tyrrell or another kind of blue?
I can't say this, It's sometimes with this title I find it already a bit too much. Um, I I don't know. Well, I have an English friend. His name is Geoff Andrew, and he was leading the British Film Institute, and he wrote a little book about an Iranian Persian film director Abbas Kiarostami. And Kiarostami once said that by telling a story, you tell one story. Here, uh, every listener hears one story, but you say nothing. If you say nothing, there's a whole pack of things. The power then passes on to the spectator. So, meaning each listener listens his own music with his background, with his ears, with his place in the hall, what he hears, what he's not able to see, and to to swallow or digest or whatever. If you have 1,000 people in the hall, then you have 1,000 different versions of a piece. So I'm not so convinced by explaining the contents of a piece.
Yes, so dangerous to give it titles, I suppose, because people start thinking different things.
Yeah, but it can be funny, but
Yeah,
no, not funny, but it can be even important. But I think it's there is difference if you do it
mm,
intentionally or if a title just happens.
yes. So that's in the first of these three recitals on the first. They're pairing your piece with the Ravel Quartet. And then in the afternoon, you've got a collection of musicians, including violinists Benjamin Baker and the pianist Benjamin Frith, playing a variety of pieces. Kraken is one of the pieces in that. But also Lyrical Lights, which is a piece for tenor and clarinet. I'm just interested to know what the text is for that piece.
Well, this whole piece it just happened to me. It's was meant as an accompaniment for an installation in a by let's say a concept artist who made a light sculpture of two people, going like this, and you see the LED um, beeping up and down and vanishing, so that you have the illusion of two people walking alongside together.
I see.
And this was made by my friend Rens Feldman and his friend Ryan Nathanson, who is a jazz musician turned writer. He wrote a text about two people walking alongside a promenade in New York City, and in the process of departing from each other. So this is the man, of course, explains to the woman why it's or what is happening right now, and I just wrote this for this vernissage back then, and we flew in Mark Padmore, and we played this piece and had a half an hour rehearsal. And astonishingly enough, it turned into a piece which I still like, and I think it's a even substantial piece in a way, and the combination of the clarinet and the tenor seems very natural but exciting at the same time.
You mentioned Mark Padmore there. There is also in the 3:00 afternoon concert that day the Padmore cycle, so no prizes for guessing who you wrote that for. Can you tell us a bit more about this piece? I think I've heard it actually for a tenor and orchestra, a version for it. But this is an earlier, the original, I think, isn't it?
Well, the piano version is the original one, and I then made an orchestra version. And by the way, we just recorded the orchestra version in Bergen with the symphony orchestra and Ed Gardner. Well, Mark Padmore has been a huge story for me with him, because he encouraged me to write this piece. And I took texts of two friends of mine, which very much had to do with nature and with the reflection of one's own life in the mirror of nature, a theme constantly accompanying me. And so yeah, I think I played it. Yes, I played it when we first did it, and we did it often, and he did it often, and also with Andrew West, the very good British pianist. And so I made the orchestration, and the orchestration went to many orchestras and places, and to the Elbphilharmonie and to Munich with Marius Jansons and Mark. And that's a great joy to work with Mark, because he always tries to make the things really, really happen. And I very much appreciate his intensity.
And the song cycle itself, I mean, there's one line that leapt out of me, which I must say seems both an anchor point and also rather intriguing. And it's this line, "A hunger for a home that is no more." Can you explain, therefore, what when you mention nature there, is this reflecting what we're doing to nature, or were you thinking of other things?
To be honest, less so. But I think it's a home, or you don't really have this expression Heimat, do you?
I know what you mean. Yes, we don't have it in English. No, yes.
But I call it home now. A home can only as long be a home as you are at home with the people living there. So I know from the poet that it's about this as well.
Yeah.
And it's of course a feeling which you can come close to very easily in narrow alpine villages and elsewhere.
And then in the evening on that day, you're going to be appearing on stage yourself, playing the piano, or one of the two pianos, because you'll be with a great friend of Wigmore Hall, Paul Lewis, in the final concert of the evening. You're playing, first of all, your poems, which are these... Well, they go back a long way. I think the first was composed in about 1975. I love the title of this set, 12 Pieces for Pianists and Other Children. It's a nice title.
Have you ever seen a pianist who is not a child? I
But I'm intrigued by some of the titles here. I mean, they're all miniatures, aren't they? It's
Yeah,
that's I
yeah, yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
Was it an experiment or a study of miniaturism that drove you to write these pieces?
Well, no, it was an exercise to condense ideas into a very small form and still making sure that it really works. And of course, it was really meant for students or little children to be played in different grades. They are not all. Some are pretty hard, others are not, are very easy. So yeah, that's it about.
Yes, but I mean, this is what I mean. This is what I meant in my introduction. You are inspired by a great variety of different events or situations. I mean, the sad yellow whale. Just tell me, how did that appear? I mean, it literally did appear, didn't it, on the score?
Yeah, well, it's that's another story. I had a helmet with a climbing helmet, and there was some kind of a brand with a whale on it. And sadly, this helmet was smashed by a stone with me beneath. But luckily, I had the helmet. And so the sad yellow whale was gone because it was not, I couldn't use it anymore. So yeah, that's a real story.
Yes, and then also sleeping in the house of a famed Sherpa in Nepal. I mean, just give us a bit of background to that little piece.
Well, that was really embarrassing because it was at the well, we came to this lodge, as they call it, in the evening, and we had some very hot soup, spicy soup, and I had a balaclava, and it was very dark. But out of my head, and there came a steam like from a chimney because I was sweating so much from the hot soup. So if you want it to be like that, it was like this. But if you want to tell the story differently, it was the house of Babu Chiri, who at this age was the man who most often stood on top of Mount Everest. And just 2 years before we went there, he had an accident and died just there. So we were with his family, but not with him.
Ah, I see. And what of the day that you lost your funny green dog?
Oh, just more banal, but it was just also a dog being uh, the symbol of the manufacturer of the cap.
I see you lost your cap.
Of course it's also a symbol because it was a cap given to me by my ex-girlfriend, and so I felt that a little last little bit has had disappeared in this case as well.
They sound very amusing as well as interesting pieces. But you're also, or rather, more to the point, Paul Lewis is going to play your piano sonata, which, when I was looking at the way you describe this piece, it is a piece that almost describes your process, how you go about composing. I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about this piano sonata, because it's an intriguing thought process that you've gone through.
Well, it's already two steps away from me now, of course, but looking at it now, I think it's a quite eclectic piece, being much more near to piano playing in a way every pianist encounters it, with really using the piano maybe in an old-fashioned form and getting close to some kind of virtuosity even, and using the modern piano to the full extent rather without muting or preparation and so, but um, and it's built around a little piece which I even wrote for Lars Vogt because he called me some one day and had to tell me or told me that he wanted to tell me that he had his cancer. And as a reaction to that, I did send him this little piece, which is now the movement 3 or 2. And he I didn't, think of it, but he then after that he still played it quite often. And then I also made a version of this for the Heimbach Festival when they played the first time without him being there. So that's the real nucleus of the sonata.
Hmm. I mean, you've written about the way in which you compose, and one line in particular jumped out at me, which was when composing, one is an interface in an infinite and never ending circuit of connections. And that line really intrigued me because so often when I listen to music, I'm not being a composer myself, I'm always fascinated by why a composer goes from that idea and goes that way and not another way.
Mhm.
I mean, presumably, you have to decide a path. When you're composing, therefore, do you start off with a clear idea in your mind of the entire arc of the piece that you're writing, or do you give yourself up to what comes?
Well, sadly, the latter one. I would sometimes I would be really happy to have this whole thing lying before me and just having to write it down. But I don't consider myself as a genius who can do this. And this whole thing that so many influences and so many threads go through a composer's mind and from the back to the front or on all directions, this also refers to this working method. I have to work my way through, and I'm not a genius. I really have to fight for the pieces. I have to redo them. I have to rework them. And I know or in music it was always was so that pupils learn from their teachers, and their teachers learn from their teachers, and composers learn from instrument builders, and composers inspire the instrument builders. They learn in the studio from a sound engineer or from a recording director, and they learn from each other, and we learn from philosophers and from writing. And the material for the strings is given to us by the sheep, and the sheep are given to us by the Holy God. So it's all connected together. And I just see myself as a tiny, tiny part of this whole big story of music and life.
Hmm. But when you're writing a piece like the Piano Sonata, are you in a sense walking the mountains without a map as such? Are you just picking your way and deciding which way to go with every step? And then sometimes having to go back and retrace your steps because you've taken the wrong path. Is that the frustration you're talking about there?
Yeah, definitely. But it wouldn't be good without those steps, I mean, of course, they can be frustrating and so and always again this moment or this thought pops up, the thought I couldn't do this again. I wouldn't be able to write a piece like 20 years ago, but it's very clear. I mean, because I am not the one who I was 20 years ago. Um, but I'm very happy that I still can get myself sometimes at least into a state of mind which is I call a reactor power state, where for some condensed time I really can get the center of the piece and put it out of the hot water at the right time.
Hmm. Hmm. And just tell us a little bit about the concerts in June and July next year. We're going to have a performance of Unerzelt, which
Yeah.
translates in English as Untold, which I think was it composed for the Aldeburgh Festival. It seems to have been a tribute to the Suffolk landscape, from what I can see.
Well, this has to do with the with the texts which are by Sebald. Everyone knows Sebald, and he was a German writer teaching in Norwich, I think, at the university, and having died there also in a car crash. And by the end of his life, or he made a book which, with very enigmatic and very short texts. And on the left side always was a picture of the eyes of a person. I just took the texts from this book and also made an order which more obeys to musical paths than to text paths. And I wrote it for Andre Schuhen, and it took a time to be performed for the first time. But this in Opera, it was the first time. Yes. Yes.
And talking of Aldeburgh, the next concert in July involves the Britten Symphonia,
Yes.
a piece called "Still" with the violist Timothy Ridout, who's a very fine musician indeed. Played a lot here at Wigmore Hall. Did you write it for him?
No,
Ah,
I wrote it for Kim Kashkashian initially,
ah,
a long time ago, and then it was played a lot by Lawrence Power, also with me conducting, and by Tapia Zimmermann, and by lots of different people. And this was just this closes the circle in a way, because this just was the piece which Dennis Russell David encouraged back then in something like 2000.
I see.
And he and I was in with ECM already then, and asked Kim whether she would like to join in, and this all worked out. And um, so it's a very old piece, and also in this I find certain passages being really awkward, and somehow when I study it now, for the conducting, which I will do again here, I think, oh man, why did he write it like that? And it's a bit not you feel that it's, or you hear, or you in your hands, that it's a bit a big beginner's piece, but still it has this intensity which I really love about the piece. And I don't play this about every of my pieces, but I'm happy that it's being played again.
Yes. So you're not an Anton Bruckner then. You're not someone who goes back to your old pieces and revises and revises and revises once you've had them performed.
I revise and revise, but I don't revise and revise and revise. You know? Because I think you can also destroy the pieces. You must say, okay, this was the time back then. I was not able to find another solution. Who knows what I would have done now? But it's not now. It was then, and it must stay there. Or you can also throw away pieces. I mean, there are so many I threw away.
Well, it's rather nice that you're ending your residency at the beginning, which is an interesting.
Yes, indeed, it is. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, yeah. And just before we finish, I mean, you are in the Tyrol. That's where you grew up. That magnificent landscape. How important is that place to you and to your music, would you say?
Well, ask my girlfriend. She would say it's terribly important, because she wants to be in Vienna rather than here amongst the mountains, or beneath the mountains, which are terrifying for some people. But I have to admit, yes, in a strange sense, this old-fashioned picture of a composer seeking inspiration in nature is still there, although what's diminishing radically is the nature as such, especially in touristic regions as we have here. So what can I say? I mean,
Well, how does it work? How does it work, Thomas? I mean, if you walk in the mountains, you have this romantic idea of Sibelius watching swans flying off the lake and suddenly coming up with the end of his Fifth
I
Symphony.
don't have that. That's the great
You don't
stress
have that.
factor. That's the most fantastic thing when the swans come in Sibelius 5. That's really unbelievable. Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, is that the sort of thing that happens to you? You're walking and things come to your mind which
No,
wouldn't come
I get
otherwise.
myself empty, when running through the mountains, or even if you're rock climbing, then it's also so that it's so much like playing the piano, in the best moment you you don't even know what you were thinking when doing it, because you had no time to reflect on yourself, but you just did what you made the right movement in the right time at the right point of time. and that's piano playing, and that's climbing, and that's tennis, or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's all a kind of a practice to let loose and to get empty.
I was talking to you about the mountains because it seems
Yeah.
to me that that is an important part of your life anyway. With reference to that, no destination seems to have been particularly inspired by, well, not so much the mountains you know, but the mountains of Scotland, and a book that was, I think, written by Nan Shepherd in the 1940s. What was it in that book that she said about the mountains that inspired you so much?
Isn't it called The Living Mountain?
That's right. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I wrote this cycle, the Living Mountain, based on texts by Nan Shepherd. Sadly, it won't be played here at Wigmore Hall Portrait, as the stage is simply too small for the multitude of percussion instruments I dared to use. So this won't work out. But I think it's one of my better or best works. And what I was fascinated about is that she brings in a completely different approach towards the mountain. So she's a woman, and she hasn't automatically, maybe she does not have this competitive approach to mountains, which has been lived out by men for more than 100 years now, and most of the times in a very senseless and bloody way. So she really sees herself or her soul or her feelings, her excitement through very tiny little glimpses she receives when she's walking through the mountains, and that's very sensitive and very accurate and very even something it's as if she very analytical also. I mean, you can clearly see that the mountains also were a therapy for her, and not a thing on which she stepped, but even a living a living mountain.
And that appeals to you, that analytical approach, does it,
Oh
in the way
yes,
that you
very much
work?
so. I found myself very much recognized, and uh, as I know the other side as well, to conquer a mountain and all the dangers and all the casualties and the dying of friends, or even so, it gives a much more complete picture of the meaning of mountains, or of the meaning of the relation of people with mountains, than the usual mountaineering books, of course.
Well, as we come to the end of this conversation, Thomas, we're very much looking forward to your residency here. What are the new projects that you're working on at the moment? What have you got on the cooker?
On the cooker, well, there is a very quite big orchestral adventure in front of me, or I have already embarked on that, to write a symphony for Oslo and Concertgebouw and Orchestre de Paris and Chicago Symphony, commissioned by Klaus Meckerle, who is a dear friend of mine, and who, yeah, obviously like doesn't isn't disgusted by my music. And I'm also, in fact, doing another exploring the possibility of another string quartet again. And but what's for the future, I really want to even more work with texts, because I feel, looking backwards, the texts always they give you a set, or at least for me, they create such a we're formal order, or they just, it's like with those little metal things, if you have something magnetic, then they display themselves in a certain way, and always this seems so obvious for me with texts I like, or with texts where it clicks for me. And I think texts and can inspire my music to be much more open, or not hiding from emotions, and so this it's all qualities. And if I then maybe can make something which also the texts might benefit on, then it might be wonderful. If not, then it's horrible.
And do you actively look for a text, or do you wait for things to just leap out at you?
Well, to be honest, I'm also looking for an opera plot, a libretto, and I must say I've encountered problems with rights for the texts, with the allowance of using or not being able to use them, which is very disheartening. And but yes, I always and again look. I'm looking out for texts, of course. Yes,
But
because
you
this
you
I can.
just read, and then it just strikes you, does it? I mean, you don't actively go and try and
Well,
find
and
it.
it's something, which I am really not talented at, is to write any sort of text. So this is just a joy to know. No, that's not my thing to do.
Yeah.
But um, I go and search and maybe find a little crumb or something to eat, and then my motor starts working.
Well, we certainly look forward to welcoming you back here to Wigmore Hall, Thomas. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for talking to us on this podcast today, and good luck with the residency.
yeah.
Not that you'll need
Thank
luck,
you.
I should think.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me for this podcast, and also thank you for all the people in Wigmore organizing everything and making their wonderful programs. It's really an honor and a big, great pleasure to come here.
My guest on our podcast today, Thomas Larcher. Don't forget the big date, which is Sunday, the 1st of November, with those 3 concerts starting at 11:30 in the morning, one at 3 in the afternoon, and then with Thomas and Paul Lewis playing at 7:30 in the evening. You'll find all of the details of those concerts and indeed Thomas's entire residency on the Wigmore Hall website. I'm Ian Skelly. Thank you very much for watching. This is one of a number of podcasts from Wigmore Hall, so do come back and sample some more.